Hello and welcome to our video on the anatomy of the thorax. Today we will cover the ribs, the diaphragm, the lungs, the heart and the mediastinum.
Firstly, we'll be discussing the ribs and sternum. The thoracic rib cage contains 12 pairs of ribs and the sternum. They articulate posteriorly to each vertebrae. The top 10 set of ribs articulate anteriorly with the sternum. However, only the first 7 ribs attach to the sternum directly and are known as true ribs. Ribs 8 to 10 are known as false ribs as they do not connect to the sternum directly but via the 7th rib's costal cartilage. The 11th and 12th ribs are known as floating ribs as they do not articulate to the sternum by cartilage. The sternum is located on the midline and is comprised of 3 sections: the manubrium, body and xiphoid process. The manubrium and the body are joined at the sternal angle at the level of T4 to T5, where the second rib joins. At the most superior part of the sternum lies the jugular notch, and laterally lies the clavicular notches, where the clavicle joins.
The diaphragm is the main muscle of respiration and is made up from thin skeletal muscle that separates the thorax from the abdomen. The diaphragm sits at the base of the chest and is innervated by the phrenic nerve. There are 3 hiatuses of the diaphragm: the esophageal hiatus, where the esophagus penetrates the diaphragm at the level T10, the aortic hiatus that travels behind the diaphragm at the level T12, and the caval hiatus, where the inferior vena cava penetrates the diaphragm at the level of T8.
There are 2 lungs, the left and right lung, both which have different lobes. The right lung is composed of 3 lobes, the superior, middle and inferior. These are divided by a horizontal fissure and an oblique fissure. The left lung has only 2 lobes, the superior and inferior, with the lingular located inferiorly. These lobes are divided by a single oblique fissure. The lungs extend from just above the clavicle to rib T8 during exhalation and then to T10 during inspiration. The trachea bifurcates around the carina at levels T4 and T5 and the second rib into its respective bronchi. As well as the different lobes of the lungs, they each have defining characteristics. For example, the left lung can be identified by the impression from the heart and the aortic arch. The right lung can be identified by the higher level of the diaphragm due to the liver located inferiorly. The hilum gives rise to the blood supply in and out of the lungs, as well as the bronchi that bring oxygen in and CO2 out. The pulmonary artery lies at the top of the hilum and removes deoxygenated blood from the lungs back to the heart via the venous system. Bronchial arteries lie under this and supply the bronchi with their blood supply. Inferior to the arteries is the bronchi and the pulmonary veins. The bronchi supply oxygen from the atmosphere to air spaces in the lungs.
The heart lies mainly behind the sternum but protrudes into the left-hand side of the chest. There are 4 corners of the heart. The first corner is at the 3rd costal cartilage at the superior border of the right atrium. The second corner is located at the 6th costal cartilage at the inferior border of the right ventricle. The 3rd corner of the heart is located at the 2nd intercostal space at the superior border of the left atrium. The 4th corner of the heart is located at the 5th intercostal space at the inferior border of the left ventricle. There are 4 great vessels from the heart that include the superior and inferior vena cava, the pulmonary trunk, the pulmonary vein and the aorta. Deoxygenated blood flows through the superior and inferior vena cava and into the right atrium of the heart. The blood then flows into the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve. From the right ventricle, blood then flows into the pulmonary trunk through the pulmonary valve, where the trunk bifurcates into the left and right pulmonary arteries, where the blood then becomes oxygenated by the lungs. The oxygenated blood flows back into the heart by the pulmonary vein into the left atrium. From here, the blood travels into the left ventricle through the bicuspid valve. From the left ventricle, blood leaves the heart and enters the aorta via the aortic valve.
We will now look at the mediastinum. The mediastinum is the central part of the thoracic cavity between the lungs. The boundaries of the mediastinum are the thoracic inlet superiorly, the sternum and costal cartilages anteriorly, the thoracic spine posteriorly, the diaphragm inferiorly, and the mediastinal pleura laterally. It is divided into 4 smaller cavities, the superior, posterior, anterior, and middle mediastinum. The superior mediastinum is divided by a transverse plane that passes through the sternal angle between T4 and T5. The bifurcation of the trachea and aortic arch are also at this level. The middle mediastinum is bound by the pericardium, with the posterior mediastinum behind it and anterior mediastinum in front. Most of the contents of the mediastinum are the heart and associated vessels. The middle mediastinum contains the heart, the superior mediastinum contains the great vessels including the aorta and vena cava, which then pass into the posterior mediastinum, which also contain the vagus nerve. The anterior mediastinum is the smallest space and contains no major structures, but does contain the left and right phrenic nerves. The diaphragm reaches multiple vertebral levels due to its domed shape. The highest level it reaches is T8, which also is the level at which the inferior vena cava enters. Anteriorly, it reaches and attaches to the xiphoid process at the level of T10. Posteriorly, it reaches T12. This is also the level the aorta passes behind. Today we've covered the ribs, the diaphragm, the lungs, the heart, and the mediastinum. Thank you for listening.